Okay, VOD review time. It has been a while since I've done one of these. So I have it paused because I want to talk about team composition, which is something you want to think about when selecting your character. Now, you like playing Mei. That's fine. Mei is meta right now. But you always want to consider like how your pick fits with the rest of the team. So it's Hanamura, which is Mei's best map. So honestly, the team should be picking around you. But it's comp. Like people are gonna do what they want to do. So sometimes you're the one who has to switch. But in this situation, this isn't too bad. Reinhardt pairs very well with Mei. Roadhog, I mean, I think normally you typically want a Zarya, but Roadhog's fine. In fact, with the Roadhog and the Torb, it's actually a pretty good amount of damage and shield pressure, which could be very useful if done right. Supports, Baptiste is overpowered right now. She should be in every game. Mercy, a little bit weird, doesn't quite fit, but I mean, she could damage boost Roadhog or something. And if someone does get picked, she can res, which is pretty good in TCP. So overall, team comp not too shabby. Should be fairly happy with this. I'm gonna start. So obviously your goal is going to be trying to control the choke, but I have skipped a little bit ahead in the video and kind of say some things that happened. Um, and we'll go over it because it doesn't quite go the way it should. Let me just skip ahead a little bit.
Alright, dog, I got you, bud.
So Reinhardt's doing a thing. So I'm actually to comment on what Reinhardt's doing. So it's a little hard to see through it, but I believe what he should have been trying to do is go for a flame strike as they're coming out of spawn. Since Reinhardt's already doing it, you should probably be doing it too. Just go for a cheeky shot. It ain't gonna kill anyone. Although, honestly, if he does Flame Strike and you do Headshot, it will kill a 200 HP hero. If that did happen to happen. Is it likely to happen? Well, no. No, it's not. But your overall goal is to gain ult charge as quickly as possible in any free hits. That's what Reinhardt's doing. It's a very good thing for him to do, especially. But it's also good for you to do. This can bite you in the ass if, say, a Widow just immediately grapples out and headshots you, like 360 no scope, or just Anzo. Like it can kill you. Generally, though, you go for one shot and you walk away immediately and you're fine. The fact that Reinhardt's here makes it even safer because he's doing it too. And then you just immediately back up. You don't stay out there because you don't know what the enemy is running yet, and that's very important to know what the enemy's running.
Junk, Orisa, Roadhog, Anna. Also Anna.
So your team is trying to call out who the enemy has, which good. However, at this point, it's been 15 seconds. You can just hit tab and you'll see it. And you honestly should hit tab pretty soon here, especially since you're just standing here, to figure out exactly what the team is running. Because spoilers, actually not spoilers, because this actually wasn't what happened, but this is what could have happened. Because you're standing here, if they have a Hanzo, he could just climb up that window and immediately shoot you in the head. Because you're just standing here. And you think you're safe because they can't see you around the corner, but someone can climb that window and shoot you in the head. And you'd be a very easy target for them because you're not moving. So this is actually kind of dangerous because you don't know what they're running. If you did know what they're running, if you knew for sure they didn't have a Hanzo or a Widowmaker that would do that, then it's safe because then you know there is no threat. But there could be a threat here. The other issue is that because you are just standing here, you're not really participating in the fight. You're kind of assuming that they're going to walk through this choke, you'll wall them off. And that's what you want to do. But there's other things you could be doing, and even this style is too safe because you basically put yourself out of the fight. Like you have your like main objective, like as I said coming out of spawn, like you want to control the choke. So you know you want to wall them off. You know that's like the big get. You know that's how you're gonna win. You're gonna wall them off and they're dead. But every character generally has like multiple objectives. To put it one way, like you can do other things while keeping in mind your primary focus. Um, the best example of this is probably going to be like a diva who has like 7 different jobs and she has to like figure out which job to do at any given time. It's very complicated for her. Mei, it's pretty simple. You're always just going to wall people off, but you also need to do additional things, which is mostly going to be damage. She's not a high DPS character, but it matters. And why it matters particularly here is because you do have, I mean, the Baptiste killed himself, as we can see, but you have a Roadhog, you have a Torb, and you have a Reinhardt shield, which is the strongest shield right now. I mean, again, we don't quite know what they're running. There was callouts, but I'm not going to rewind it to figure it out. I assume eventually hit tab and I'll pause it and we'll talk about it. But Reinhardt shield is the strongest, and even if they're running like Orisa Sigma, Reinhardt shield will last longer than their initial shields, assuming equal DPS. With Torb and Roadhog, it's a lot of, Torb and Roadhog, it's a lot of DPS. Mei is not a lot of DPS. However, when their shield is down, Mei is pretty threatening at what we're gonna call poke. I know you said before you're not like super familiar with like a lot of like weird terms. So poke is like literally kind of like what it sounds like. Like you like when you poke your arm with your finger, you apply pressure. A poke style composition is just applying pressure to the enemy. The idea being that, let's say they're running Reinhardt, and I think they might be, I don't remember, but yeah, they are running Reinhardt. If Reinhardt's shield breaks, like Reinhardt needs to get close to do anything, right? Like he's a melee character, he needs to be close, so he needs to slowly walk forward with his shield up. If you could provide enough pressure on him to break his shield, he's kind of screwed. Like, if he keeps walking forward, he might just get shot in the head and die. But if he backs up, well, there might not even be cover for him to back up to. And the pressure eventually just, like, it caves in your arm and kills you. Like, there's too much pressure. And you have a pretty high pressure poke composition to do that with Roadhog, Torbjorn. And while your damage against your shield isn't very significant, if the shield is down, your headshots do a lot of damage. And that creates a lot of opportunities to actually kill people. Not just by yourself, but like again, like we talked about when the door opened, flame strike headshot, someone's dead. Unlikely to happen at the door, but when the fight's actually happening, if you hit someone with a headshot, especially if you can call it out, I'm assuming you don't have voice, because I think before this you were just like typing in chat. But ideally, you would be in voice, and you like, I got a headshot, like Ana's one hit. You know, if the Reinhardt didn't see it, and at least you call it out, he could just immediately flame strike an Ana, and then boom, Ana's dead. You know, or at the very least, you get headshots, and then like if you get a headshot on Ana, she has to throw a nade to heal herself because she's worried she's gonna die, and that's significant for her to have to use a nade to heal herself rather than actually use it offensively. So applying pressure is important, and you have a pretty good comp to do it. So while you're sitting here, you're not really applying any pressure. And that ends up causing opportunities where Baptiste gets killed. Because another thing to keep in mind is you're fairly beefy. You're 250 HP, and you have both the wall and ice block to like keep you alive. So it's far better for you to be taking damage than Baptiste. And Baptiste, what he's doing, like, I'd have to rewind it to see exactly how he died. It's possible he was an idiot, but he's not exactly not doing his job here because he has a lot of damage as well. Baptiste's damage is kind of absurd right now. He has actually more DPS than Soldier 76. It's kind of like, I think if you don't count Helix rockets, if it's just pure shots, he actually outdamages Soldier. So it's kind of absurd. So him being up front and poking, actually not a problem. The problem is probably that there isn't enough poke compared to them, because actually we can clearly see they have a Junkrat, and Junkrat's like the highest DPS. So yours is important. And to get to the other point that I want to make is that playing it safe with these walls, you want to get to a point where you don't need to stand perfectly to wall people off. You need to get to a point where if you're standing, I mean, I wish I could draw. The drawing program I have just doesn't, like, it never works. If you're standing, like, basically where Baptiste's corpses is, and they're coming through, you need to be able to quickly wall off the Reinhardt, like, looking at him. You need to be able to wall him off without having this, like, standing there being perfect. That's a skill you need to develop as Mei. And it's not really about aim. It's more getting the sense of it and the quick reaction, because like this is the best map for Mei. This is one of the best chokes to wall off, but to really be good at Mei requires you to be able to wall people off at like on a dime, basically, like to recognize the quick, like, oh man, wall opportunity, I gotta do it now, and be able to like basically flick and do it as if you were Widowmaker making a headshot. Though the aiming of that is not so precise, like you have a lot of wiggle room, but the faster you can recognize it and do it and be able to quickly do that is a skill that you want to develop as Mei, because Mei's walls are massively powerful and significant. It's really the reason why you run her. If Mei didn't have wall, she'd be the most worthless character in the game, but wall is so powerful. But you also still need to give value in other ways, because you're just not participating in this fight right now. And that leads to like Baptiste dying. You could have taken shots for him and probably lived, because you have 50 HP more. And another point is you're less valuable than Baptiste. He's a healer. Your other healer is a Mercy. Baptiste is dead. You've lost a significant amount of healing. It would be better for you to die and Baptiste to live in almost every situation. And then Reinhardt charges like an idiot. But this is like another thing of like, Reinhardt went out there Narnia. Like, when I said at the beginning of the game, you pair very well with Reinhardt, because when you wall off, Reinhardt can pin whoever gets walled off. That's what makes that combo really good. Now that Reinhardt's dead, what are we walling off for? Who's going to follow up on your wall to actually get a pick? Because if it's an enemy Reinhardt or an Orisa, I guess they have Orisa. Are they really an Orisa, Ryan? Yikes. Whatever tank walks through, someone needs to be able to kill them. And it's probably going to be your Reinhardt. Roadhog might do it, but this is like already a problem. So it would have been worthwhile to try and save him. And so we're talking about quick walls. Reinhardt did a very stupid move that he didn't need to do, because yeah, we have the Mercy. I kind of forgot we had the Mercy to res Baptiste. So Reinhardt could have just walked forward and shielded this. I know he pinned for no reason, but you could have walked through here and put up a wall in front of him to save him from his own mistakes, so that he could get back to the team. So it's like a good use of wall. It's just, my team has done something stupid. I need to save them. I will say though that now at this point, it kind of makes sense to stand here, because you don't have a shield, you don't have a Reinhardt. This is all you got left. So actually, at this point, standing here makes sense. It's not safe to poke without your own shield, especially if they're running double shield themselves.
Oh, Genji above, Genji above.
And I mean, I guess I'll point it out, but yeah, like you shield the Orisa up. You have to really wait for them to come in. It's kind of like another reason of like that angle is less optimal. Is that they kind of know, like, the enemy isn't stupid. They know that there could be a Mei here and wall them off, even if you haven't actually participated in the fight. If they hit tab, they know you're there. So most people are gonna try and like bait out the wall. And at that angle and that positioning, it's really easy to bait it out, because they kind of know you're exactly going to wall off that choke perfectly. Whereas if you were standing in front of them, you could wall off at any point behind them, and it effectively does its job, because again, if Reinhardt's alive and there's a wall immediately behind the person, bam, you pin them, even if there's ways to get around the wall, because it's not perfectly flush against the choke. Doesn't matter, they pinned up against it, they took 300 damage from the pin. His pin does 300 damage, and then Reinhardt swings for 75. He flame strikes for 100. Reinhardt can kill another Reinhardt with that combination alone, plus like 25 damage. Like anyone contributing immediately kills the enemy Reinhardt. That's why wall super powerful of Reinhardt. So, like, be flexible in your thing, because they're just gonna bait it out, and that's basically what Orisa did. She immediately turned that corner and was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna walk back." So you didn't get any value out of it. I notice you do this sometimes too, where you walk away from people you freeze. I'm not sure why you did that. I mean, he died anyway because other people shot him, but get your headshots. You know, get that headshot in. He was very low health. Fight him. You had, like, there's a certain, like, confidence you need. Like, understand your matchups and what threatens you. So, Roadhog's coming in, he gets frozen. You could see his health is not very high right there, right? Like, he had, like, half health. Your only real threat Roadhog's going to provide is if he hooks you, but you have Ice Block. So this is a matter of getting comfortable and being able to read the enemy and be like, he's gonna throw the hook now, which honestly, especially at this elo, he's probably gonna throw the hook immediately. There's not a lot of mind game here. He's gonna if he has hook, he's probably gonna throw it immediately. So just like Ice Block, as soon as he unfreezes, he's probably gonna throw it. Ice Block immediately. Once he's used hook, he's dead meat. Like his only chance to kill you is with hook, and even then, if he doesn't do the combo right, and again, this is not a high elo, so you have 250 HP. You have to do the combo perfectly to kill Mei. So you probably survive it anyway. At least if you had full health. I'm not sure what your health was at the time. I'm not gonna rewind. But if he doesn't perfectly kill you, just Ice Block immediately after, and you're still fine. Like, get your shots in, because this is where I'm getting at this. Your ult charge is only 38%. It would be ideal if it was much higher. Because we're a minute and 15 in the game. See? He fucked up the combo and you Ice Blocked. Like, what was the threat before? And then you turn around again. He doesn't have hook. Now, granted, okay, you're not at full health. He actually could right-click you. I'll actually give you this one. He could right-click you and kill you. But at the same time, like, is he actually going to do that? Ideally, you have healers. Like, you're kind of walking away from your healers, too. I'm not really sure what they're doing. I'm not sure. I think Mercy was at least still alive. Like, he was looking getting trapped. Why are these random traps around there? Like, chaos is kind of ensued at this point. And one of the other reasons, like, I'm encouraging to stay in these fights is, like, they're just now at this point walking through the choke. Like, we've abandoned our initial objective of maintain the choke. And that's partially on your team. Like, they're all backed up. People are dying. It's very confusing. Actually, I am gonna go back, if only just to illustrate a point. So, we're, like, here, right? Like, we had this trap. We're safe. We just got the health back. What is going on right now? Do you have any idea what's going on? Because I have no idea what's going on. Like, I have no idea the state of this game at this moment. Mostly because, like, this time and the time before it, you, like, were at choke, you froze Roadhog, and then you, like, backed up because you were, like, wanting to play it safe. So my question then becomes is, like, I guess the kill feed. We could be paying attention to the kill feed, but even that is confusing because, they get in faster than we do. You obviously have other things in mind. Kill feed, I don't always like going by kill feed. Hit tab. This is what I'm getting at. Hit tab. We've never actually hit tab, I don't think, so far in this game. So, one, to understand what the enemy comp actually is, but also just to understand the state of the game. But, like, I have no idea if Mercy's alive. I know Baptiste got killed and he got rezzed. I don't know if either one of your supports are alive. I don't know if Reinhardt's made it back yet. There's a massive lack of awareness going on in this game that really hinders, like, even what I could tell you to do right now, because I'm not quite sure if at any point you should have just stayed at the choke and just made sure they didn't get through. Because I'm not sure who on your team is alive to support you in this endeavor to make sure you don't just die for it. Because at this point, yeah, you've lost. Like, yeah, we've gotten to the point where, like, you can still there's kills in the kill feed. You've pretty much screwed. But it's probably possible that if you had just stayed at the choke, you could have held it a little bit more. Sure, some people would be on your side of it, but if you have the numbers to kill them, then who cares? You just win, and you stabilize. Because that's what needed to happen. There needed to be a stabilization when Reinhardt died. And we kind of just let him come through the choke. And it didn't work out. And part of that is, and this goes back to, like, when you weren't really participating in the fight, you didn't get the free, like, shot at the beginning. If you had a 100% ult charge, if Reinhardt's death wouldn't matter then at that point. Because if they go through the choke, you just throw down Blizzard and you win. Basically. This again goes to, like, I'm not sure what they're playing, so they might have counters to Blizzard. They could have Beat, they could have Trance, they could have whatever. I don't think they do, because I think they're running an Ana and a something. I don't know what the other support is. But they could have counters to it, but yeah, you force out them to use their stuff. And most importantly, you stall time for Reinhardt to get back. Because you need Reinhardt. You're not going to win without Reinhardt. But you don't have the ult to do it. Now, I think you're actually going to get it here, right? Oh, they have a Moira Ana. So yeah, actually, they don't have much to actually counter Blizzard. So, just stalling and whatever. Don't use Blizzard here, though. This is because there's no one who's going to kill anyone. Like, you're not killing a Junkrat and Ana and Orisa and Blizzard. Even if you froze all of them and you didn't die, at most you killed Junkrat. You might get the Ana, and then Orisa kills you. Because he might have spawn advantage. They all get here before you guys do. So, even if you got kills, you probably still lose this.
Defend the objective.
Especially with how disorganized the team's been anyway. Like, I think you actually get a decent amount of, like, staggering and stalling here.
Onwards to victory.
But in some ways it ends up causing you. Now you've used Valkyrie, too. And yeah, okay, to be fair, they used Nano when they didn't need to, because they nanoed the Junkrat in your Blizzard for some reason. And now they're using Tire. Like, this stall is not ineffective, but it's mostly, like, it only is sort of, like, good because they're also not, like, being smart with their ults. Yeah, I just use Roadhog for no reason. Kind of want to talk about this wall a little bit. I don't want to belabor it too much, because it's pretty minor. But, so you've walled it this way, so you don't get a perfect wall. You weren't going to be fair, because you don't have the angle for it. But you created the opening basically on your side, which is not what you want. You wanted the wall to be on, like, this side, if you can see the mouse, because of exactly what's going to happen, because Roadhog's just going to walk through and immediately kill you, because that's where you're at. If you're going to have any kind of opening, have it be away from you, so that they don't just walk straight at you and shoot you. Ideally, you still try and find the angle here. You could maybe I don't know. Actually, you just can't. You'd have to just move more to the left. Which you might have had time to do, actually. I mean, it probably would have been worthwhile. Or maybe not. Actually, Roadhog was right there. I guess you really just didn't have time. But you didn't know that Roadhog was necessarily right there either. But ideally, he would have been over here, and it would have been a little bit better. It's pretty minor. I don't think it makes a difference in terms of winning, though. It's just like, it's good habits, which are important. Because in another situation, that does make the difference. This whole thing is, I believe, really unfortunate, because you guys keep pushing up, and you do not want to be pushing up here. This is where voice is helpful, and tell your team to get the fuck out of this courtyard. Because you are Mei, and the reason why this is the best Mei map in the game is because you are super effective both on first point and second point. But you are not effective in the courtyard, though. You are effective at these chokes. Your team is pushed up way too far. So, once again, sort of like indecisive of where you want to be. I mean, yeah, your team is completely screwed the pooch. But, you could have still helped them more. Like, you just commit to a window and start shooting. That wall you put down, good in theory, but what at that point you should have probably done is just drop down to your side onto the bridge and then try to wall off from there. Either at the choke to make sure no one gets through to buy time, or to try and save Reinhardt. Though Reinhardt was still probably too far away to do it. Like, he was still in the courtyard, and it would have been good. But if you at least wall off that bridge, that choke at the bridge, they have to wait for the wall. Like, wall lasts like 5 seconds. It lasts a long time, and you have spawn advantage here. So if you just wall off the choke, that's 5 seconds more that you have for your team to respawn and retake point. So it's really, really good. And if someone had already pushed through, like Moira and Roadhog here seem to have gotten through fairly quickly. I'm not sure if they just walked through. I guess they probably just killed Reinhardt and kept going. But there was another opportunity there where maybe since they were so close, you could have actually walled off like Roadhog and then fought him 1v1. That's like Roadhog versus Mei is very easy for Mei to win. Just don't get hooked. Like, don't immediately die from the hook and you're gold. Roadhog will not win that fight. You just keep freezing him over and over again and headshotting him. Like, it's really easy. So that would have been way better. Also, like, be more efficient with your use of, like, wall. Like, right there, you dropped the wall. You had the wall up, and then you, like, broke it for some reason? Like, why? Why break the wall? You should have tried to use that to shield you from the Roadhog as long as possible. And then, at the last second needed, then use your ice block. Because ideally, if you could survive with wall up the entire time and not die, and then you ice block, you'll be pretty close to having wall again by the time ice block comes up. You can stall for a very long time doing this, especially in certain situations where if you like wall yourself into a corner, if there is few attackers on spawn like there is now, because I think Reinhardt came back and he like charged, right? Like whoever that is. That's Roadhog. I think that's your Roadhog. But he's asleep over there. Like he's kind of keeping the rest of the enemy team like busy. So there's only 2 people on point. Like you could stall against 2 people for an extremely long time if you're efficient with your cooldowns. And that's what you need to do here because this Hanamura, actually like every 2 CP, like second point is extremely difficult to take because you have to take it clean. Like you need to kill like an entire enemy team all at once, and then you just cap it and you win. But in weird situations, like basically what's happening right now is they killed you really disproportionately. Like you're all staggering in here, and that could be a real pain in the ass to win with that. Because if Mei keeps stalling forever, you got beefy tanks like Roadhog and Reinhardt. They can stall forever. You got Baptista in Mortality Field. Mercy can be really slippery sometimes. Like, it can be really difficult to actually break a defense if you didn't do it cleanly because it'll just keep wandering in, constantly stalling. And if any of the attackers die at any point, they probably lose. Like, just if there's only 5 of them, they're probably going to lose if you can get 1 pick in that nonsense stream of people staggering out. Hanamura might be one of the worst ones of it. Anubis can be pretty bad too. It's just like, oof. Oh, I remember watching this before. It was at this point where it really became like aware to me how poor your awareness is. Part of that is because you don't look around enough. And actually, we were all talking about like sensitivity and stuff. I have a theory that your sensitivity might actually be too low. Especially, see, I also wrist aim. I don't move my arm around. I just basically wrist. I also have like basically a fingertip grip, which I think you said you might have had too. So I don't move the mouse around that much. I have really high sensitivity. Even on Windows, I have like 1800 DPI in Windows, like even higher than the normal Windows. In game, I don't remember what my number is. I think it's like 6 or 7. It's higher, like the recommended eDPI. Okay, wait, let me explain this. So you have mouse DPI, right? Which I think you said was 1600. That's pretty average. I think most people have it 1600. eDPI is when you take your mouse DPI and times it by your in-game sensitivity. So if your in-game sensitivity was like 5 and your eDPI is 1600, you're looking at 8000 eDPI. Assuming I did math right. They usually recommend a DPI between 5,000 or eDPI between 5,000 and 10,000. It's like what most pros use. It's like the standard. You don't have to do that though. And in fact, if you're wrist aiming like I do, you probably want a higher sensitivity. Because the thing with like wrist aiming and like fingertip grip and all that shit is you probably have a lot more finer control over the mouse anyway. So you don't need low sensitivity if you have that fine of control over the mouse. You can afford to have higher sensitivity. But this is also assuming that you have a mouse pad, which is why this becomes more important, because if you're going for really fine controls, you need to make sure that they're super consistent and don't get like weird and wonky because your desk is like has like a little like knot in it or something, you know, there's like something stuck to it, or you know, dirt or whatever. Like mouse pads are important because it keeps things really consistent, and you want to keep the mouse pad clean too. I actually had a really old one that would occasionally the mouse would just like wig out and go crazy because it would hit like a speck. So like optical mice didn't change anything. If that light hits something weird, it's going to interpret that information weirdly. So you want that consistency, and you want the movement to be consistent and smooth. So what I'm thinking about, like when it might be too low, is you don't move the camera around enough to get a sense of what's going on around you. And that wall there, I guess I should rewind it a little bit. This wall in particular was like, I went too far. But like this wall, like I don't really get why we walled it off. But like she's kind of shooting you, but you're fine, like whatever. And also Reinhardt's right there. Now you can't help Reinhardt. But what's really more important in terms of awareness is like, where is the enemy team? Like, you know where Orisa is, but where's everyone else? right? I mean, we could just ascertain just off the top of our heads that they must be behind you simply because that's where they come from. Like, that alone. But just in terms of like what led us to this point, I know I kind of skipped around, but you kind of, if you remember, like you came down from the top, you saw the Moira and the Roadhog, you started fighting a little bit, you did the wall, you did the ice block. At no point do you ever really like look to your left to see people coming through the bridge, to see if anyone's on the high ground around there. You don't really look over there. And at no point, even afterward, do you look around. Even when you're ice blocked and you're not doing anything other than waiting, you don't really look around. So look around, see what's going on behind you, what the threats are going to be, because the important thing about this wall is that you've walled off an Orisa who is not super threatening to you. She did a little bit of damage, but whatever. Reinhardt's right there. You can't help Reinhardt anymore. But there are far greater threats behind you coming up, namely the Roadhog, but there's also an Ana, there's probably other people. You wall them off. And there's like a better like choke position, like there's the bridge. You can wall off the bridge entirely. They can't get around your wall without falling down. You could have completely stopped their advance with a wall in that direction. And this Orisa would be dead, because Orisa versus Reinhardt, if Orisa wins at range, Reinhardt wins up close. This is why this is like not a threat to you, because Reinhardt's going to kill her. It's just a matter of how long it takes. And that's why you need to stall a wall. Like if you, as I just said before, and I actually was making that point before we got to this, if the defenders get any picks here, you're going to stabilize and win this. But you have to get those picks. So you need to buy time to make sure that Orisa dies, and ideally you stabilize as much as possible, and then keep getting more picks, and then stall this out, and eventually you win this fight, and then you can re-establish a defense. But with this wall, you're going to get flanked from behind because you weren't very aware. And that's kind of what I was getting with sensitivity, is your movements sometimes feel clunky and narrow-focused, and I'm just wondering if, like, you don't feel comfortable moving the mouse around quickly to, like, look around. I mean, the ice block thing was like you had complete freedom to do it then, but just other points of when you're walking around, it doesn't feel like you're like getting a sense of your surroundings, and I just wonder if that actually is kind of like sensitivity is just not high enough. And certain other like whipping around, I don't know. And those two things might not be related. Either way, you gotta look around more. Like, this is why I don't talk about like aim, because aim is not important. It's decision making. You didn't like lose there because you didn't shoot the Orisa in the head. You lost because you didn't see the greater threats behind you. It was entirely an awareness issue and kind of decision making, and almost like confidence. Like, why are we freezing Junkrat when he's standing still? Like, he was doing his ult. Like, sure, he was getting out of it, but he's pretty immobile here to shoot him. Freezing is kind of unnecessary. Just shoot him twice and he was dead. Like, you should have at least got the first headshot because he was still coming out and he was free shot, and then one more body shot and he's dead. Headshot, body shot kills a 200 HP hero with Mei. But freezing is unnecessary in that situation. Yeah, I almost had ult up, and that's kind of like maximizing ult, which was a little bit more important. Like, your team fucked that up in the beginning of that second point, for sure, but there was definitely opportunities where you could have helped stabilize and actually win a fight to get a good defense, where we could have talked about, you know, holding those chokes as Mei, and how you would do that, but we didn't really get the opportunity. So now we're going Sigma Hog. Oh, and man, I feel like I said this, but then I did say this, but since we're waiting anyway, just hit tab more. It's so much, like, anytime you die, hit tab, and don't focus on like how you died necessarily. Like, that's for like watching a game later. Don't focus on the past. Just focus on what you're gonna do next, and use hitting tab as an opportunity to take in that information and consider it of like what you should be doing. And sometimes that involves like how you just died. Like, if you took a 1v1 against a McCree and you lost, that doesn't like mean focus on like, oh man, I should have hit those shots on that McCree. Irrelevant. What's more important is in the next fight, do I take this fight with McCree again? Probably not, because I lost the last time. Or how do I find ways to shut down McCree without just trying to shoot him? Or is there something else I should be doing that does not involve trying to take a 1v1 that I can't win? You know, things like that. Focus on the next fight. And hitting tab is a good opportunity because it gives you all the relative information of like alt charges and like who's on what your team and who's on their team to let you kind of like figure that out. Because you don't want to just like remember it off the top of your head. You need the information in front of you to make that decision. That was a little scuffed. Not a bad idea though, if they poke through. Oh, I'm gonna take another opportunity there. It didn't really come up, but this is a good May tip. And how you could consider the importance of walls. So, another weird thing about like how you were hiding at the beginning was that sure they could hit tab and know you're there, but did they do that? This is Silver. Who the hell knows? Maybe the Orisa knew, maybe she didn't. But what's kind of interesting about how May's wall works is that May's wall is very effective even if you never use it. Meaning that it is a threat that you could use it. This is like nuclear weapon shit. Like it's not you don't need to use them to actually be dangerous. It's just the threat that you could means that people will have to play around differently. So that Roadhog actually, that's what triggered the idea, was that when you used wall there and it got no value, the Roadhog suddenly was like, oh, well, she can't wall me off, so now I can just walk through choke and try and kill her. When you use wall, it's almost a go sign for the enemy to be like, oh, well, we don't have to worry about wall anymore. So it's more important on defense, but it can, like, you don't want to waste it. This kind of goes to, like, when they try and bait it out. You got to be really careful. You don't want to be trigger happy with the wall, because if they're just trying to bait it out, they're trying to suss it out, if you never used it, they didn't get any value. But if they bait it out and you use it and you waste it, then they know that they can now go freely and you can't wall them off because you've already used it. They know there's a 5-10 seconds before you can use it again. This is also why you don't want to bring it down right away, even if it got no value, because that just lengthens the time that they have to move freely. So don't just bring it, like, even if it's a scuffed wall, didn't do anything, as long as it isn't hindering your team, doesn't matter. So just kind of be aware of that, and kind of like be careful about using it, because it's a go sign. So even like if you scuff a wall, like, so this is like if later defense, if the defense had lasted a little longer and it would a little bit more like clean. One instance of like when you would use your alt is if you tried to wall them off and it failed. What you can immediately assume is the enemy is going to like run right through your choke, like they're gonna barrel through you. Immediately if you have alt, boom, you throw down May alt, because that's gonna stop them dead in their tracks. And it's a good like to mentally know when you should alt. You know what I mean? Like have that plan in your head, because a lot of this is not, it's knowing what you should be doing and like having plans and like contingency plans and stuff like that. And that's kind of a good idea. Like know what you're gonna do, know what your enemy's gonna do, know how they're gonna counter what you counter and counter their counters. You know, it's sort of complicated, but actually once you start like figuring like it out, it actually comes really simple and really the second nature, because you just start. It just becomes really easy to predict what they're gonna do. So just like that with the Roadhog, like you saw, he used wall. He immediately is gonna try and pick and be more aggressive. If you could have gotten a freeze on him, like you almost could have punished that. Like there actually can be like big brain opportunities of like punishing them for thinking they have an advantage when you like knew ahead of time that no, they really didn't. So like that Roadhog, maybe you could have froze them and like done something, but at the same time, like their whole enemy is like the Roadhog isn't playing so badly that he actually let that happen. And apparently there was a Junkrat up there. I actually didn't notice it. Let's see, look around. That was still a sneaky play though on his part. It's unfortunate because actually that Roadhog might have overaggressed. That was getting really close. He was playing it real dangerously. Okay, yeah. Make it getting that Junkrat out of there, right? Should be noted that Junkrat's a dangerous person to fight in a box, but yeah, he isn't up here anymore. So, okay. Once again, though, what's our team doing? Like, what is the state of the game right now? No idea. I have no idea what's going on. I don't really know who's dead or who's alive. I don't really know where they're all positioned. I don't really know what's going on. Like, you've kind of went in here with no real idea. Like, I can kind of see Reinhardt's alive. I think Roadhog's alive. Or is that Sigma? No, you have a Sigma now, right? Or did he switch again? No, it's a Sigma. Okay, so, like, you kind of, some people, but you don't really know what's going on. Like, again, the kill feed is well in our past. I am not paying attention to it. I don't know if you are. Hit tab. Hit tab. And again, what's the enemy running? We know we have a Junkrat. We know they have a Roadhog. I think they had an Orisa. I don't really know what else they're running. What's the other DPS? I'm not sure. And this is once again, like, what are we doing here? Like, okay, if our team is here, like in front of the choke, who is going to walk through and the enemy team for us to wall off? Who is that stupid or ballsy enough to do that? No, I mean, that'd just be insane. So we need to help our team push forward. Like, especially on attack, this kind of wall opportunity is just never going to happen. Unless your team is, like, already losing and the enemy has decided to try and push through. Which, I mean, at that point, if your team's losing, like, the walling is probably going to matter. Like, you have to help your team with shots and do damage pressure and actually accomplish something. And then look for minor wall opportunities along the way. Because, again, you could just wall them off, just throw a wall immediately behind them. And yes, sure, you can go around it, but it temporarily blocks line of sight for their healers. So you can't get healed. If you have the Reinhardt, they could pin them against the wall, but you don't. But still, it completely screws up their movement. Have you ever, like, I'm sure you've had it happen where you start backing up and either you got walled behind you or you just had an object you didn't notice, and that really screws you over. Like, you just don't know what to do. Like, why am I stuck? It's, like, so distracting. It's horrible when that happens. You can do that all the time with people in May. And just, like, those are the wall opportunities you need to be looking for. The imperfect walls that are still, like, walls of opportunity that create a lot of value. It's very temporary, but it can be enough to make the difference where you actually kill people. It's not clean. Like, this wall would be very clean if someone walked through. They couldn't get out. They'd almost certainly be dead. But who's going to walk through this at this point? And since no one is, what are you really doing in this fight? You're not doing anything. All these things are happening. And now we push in. But, like, well, that happens. But, like, people started dying and stuff, and, you know, you could have either helped or ended it. Like, so basically, yeah, like, I guess we win. But what did we do to contribute to this win? I guess we killed Anna right there. Like, that's about it. But I think she was pretty well screwed anyway. We didn't really do anything in participation in that fight. Yeah, question marks. And then, actually, wait, we just hit tab. I wanna pause on that because it finally is like, I want to know some things here. Where is it? I have to. Okay, ooh, I got it. So this is the comparison because we're talking about alt charge, right? Like, your alt charge compared to everyone else's. Zen's at 67, which honestly is kind of low. Baptiste, of course, already has it because his alt charge is super fast. Sigma has it, and his alt charge isn't even that fast, honestly, and he's almost there. I'm assuming Roadhog must have used his alt, and Torp must have also used his, because he's at 32 and he's on fire. There's no way he didn't. So, like, you're kind of behind the curve here on alt charge, and it's because you didn't participate, and that's important, because if you were also at, like, 100% here, imagine the things you could do on this attack. It would greatly increase the odds of winning because, again, like, well, actually not again, but first fight is probably the most critical and the most likely you are to win on a 2CP on second point. And I'm not confident in whatever the alts the enemy has right now. I'm not super paying attention. They're also running Torp. So, kind of again, we're going off on a flank. Your team is already pushed in. You got the Torp turn. That's okay. on a real long flank. Flank May. All right, we got the Ana, but our team's like already dead and running away. This is kind of the problem with a flank May is you were very slow. Like you were fairly effective. I mean, you did accomplish things. It just came way too late to matter. And here's like the thing, like Ana's positioned in the back and the high elevation. The Torp turret is also placed up here in high elevation. You could just as easily shoot the Torp turret from the ground and kill it. You could have walled it off as well. You could have walled off the Ana too and completely blocked your line of sight from your team and still participated in the fight. And there might have been other wall opportunities during that fight that, I mean, we'll never know because we couldn't see it. Because maybe, if we see it, like maybe they would have, like right here actually. This is actually a great wall opportunity right between the Roadhog and whatever the hell that character is. I can't really tell. Is that Ana? I don't know. I'm not sure why we should be that far forward. That's actually a great wall opportunity. Almost perfectly distance between each other to get a perfect wall in there too. So that's kind of the things I'm talking about. Like, boom, wall right there. Whoever this is, dead. Like the shield's almost broken too. Like they're just toast. But is that McCree? But you know, you gotta see those opportunities get really fast and quick, clean. Also, I didn't mention this before, but just because that remembered it, there's other parts where you're getting health packs and stuff. You know, you do want to play around health packs, but on like especially your first point defense where you kept going back to that mega, that's a little too playing around a health pack, especially one that's not really super convenient to where a lot of the fighting is. It's pretty off. It's kind of like when we were like you're out of the fight way too much on that one, and part of it, and this goes back to alt charge and stuff. Like every time you self heal, you get alt charge. Every time you let your supports heal you, they get alt charge. Health packs don't help anybody. They're needed for when you want to be near them and stuff for like positioning and like it's better than nothing if you know it can be the difference between life and death. But a lot of times you have other means of healing and like sustain and you have supports and that alt charge gets wasted and that shit can really matter in the long run. This is like another awareness thing. Like technically, okay, you got the Ana. That's probably a pretty good blizzard. But now we've actually left the blizzard because like we were getting challenged and there was torture out there. Team's dead, right? Team's basically dead. Like, or they're dead or scattered. I don't know what the hell they're having a really hard problem. Like, because this is like the last fight. Like, not everyone died, but everyone keeps like running away. It's really weird. But obviously the team's having trouble pushing, and part of that might be because you're not there to help. Your flanks are semi-effective. Like, I'm not saying they're like bad, because you are getting on a punch. She's not learning from that. But without being aware of what the team's doing and not coordinating enough, like you basically need to be going in before your team goes in for this to be actually effective. And because you're a slow character, you can't do that. They're already in the fight before you do, and they've basically already lost it before you can actually achieve what you've achieved. So it doesn't really get you anything. Oh my fucking god. And yeah, now you're frustrated because what's happening. But at the same time, it's like, they're fighting 5v6. So like, what do you expect? They're going to lose that. And if you were a faster flankier character, you could be making these flanks way better. If you were Tracer, you could just blink into Ana in no time and you get right on her and kill her. But you're Mei. You're one of the slowest characters in the game. You don't have your Frozo slidey powers yet that may one day enter the game. So it's not that it's a bad idea. It's just that it's too dang slow. And you kind of stay on it, and they're basically still always 5v6. I know Baptiste has decided to join you. Speaking of which, why are we backing up here? Like, who knows what's going on in the main fight? But Baptiste is now full committed, and I should point out that he has his immortality field here, which basically means that you are invulnerable if you stand here, assuming it's still in line of sight. That's kind of a weird position. I'm gonna just because we're talking about stuff. Baptiste's immortality field does require line of sight, which means it can be blocked by shields. It can be blocked by Maywall. If you actually put a Maywall right on top of an immortality field, it will stop it because the field will be so the actual device will be in your wall, and thus it will actually block line of sight from anything else. I think it's difficult to get it perfectly in because it would have to be perfectly in it, but you could still like wall off one side of it very easily, and then anyone on that side would not be helped by immortality field. Even if you see the circle, doesn't matter if they're in the circle. If they cannot see the field, if the field cannot see them, the field does not help them. And so even if like a Sigma shield blocks it, or a Orisa shield can block it, Maywall can block it. Lots of things can block line of sight. And I bring this up mostly because this is kind of a weird, and it almost could be breaking line of sight because there's that door frame above that actually, I don't know if that would block it or not because I think it still sees you like below. But I think he's safe because actually you can see he's glowing, so he should be fine. But because this immortality field is like completely invisible to the enemy cannot see that, so there's no way it gets destroyed. And I think you said this was a few weeks ago too, so it's probably before they nerf the duration of immortality field. You could be down there with Baptiste freely shooting at them, and yeah, they're probably gonna hit you, but you're invulnerable. Like you take a bunch of damage, but who cares? Once again, free alt charge, you might actually get picks. And if your team is actually alive, they might actually be able to push in and do something with it. Because a lot of them were up here. So this is a pretty massive distraction potential. But only Baptiste is participating, and he's probably not going to get killed by himself. But if you were there, you might get... Actually, he did get the Orisa. Damn. You should probably look at the skill feed more. Like, you could be down there helping him. But you're kind of like up here, like... Actually, are you shooting the field? That's your field. What's your field? Yeah. But no, that was actually a great field on his part. He was just they couldn't stop his field. He was basically, I don't know what killed him. Holy shit! But like you could have been down there with him helping him. I think you just get confused. To be fair, I sometimes also get confused by lamp. I sometimes actually look at my own lamp and think it's an enemy lamp. So it happened more than once. I'm not afraid to admit that. But no, that one was it's weird torture. But also, like, kind of recognize your tactics here. Like, you're doing the same thing over and over again, and you're expecting a different result. And your team's made some switches and stuff, too, but this is another thing. Like, the enemy knows you're up here. And so now you're worried about, like that was actually a good wall. I will give you that. That was a really good wall to prevent the McCree from killing you, but that McCree easily could have got you. Like, he was going for you. And this flank could be more effective if the enemy were doing that more often. Like sending resources your direction to make it more of a fair fight. Because yeah, if someone was going up top to fight you, well now it's a 5v5 on the ground and it's a 1v1 for you, so it's even. Doesn't make it a better idea, but at least it's even. And if they send two people to kill you, well hey, as long as you don't die, then it's a 5v4 in the main fight. And if you can hold off against two people, you're probably going to win them. But I think this goes with like how Elo and like you were talking about like streamers. You kind of have a point about like watching streamers at high Elo doesn't really necessarily help you play the game better. It can if you understand what they're doing, but just as like an example, I probably shouldn't. I'm not in this fight, but as an example, like. GM Reinhardts will charge like morons just as much of a gold Reinhardt. The difference is that a GM Reinhardt, one is probably tracking things that a gold Reinhardt is not, namely like a Zarya bubble. If a GM charges, he probably knows a Zarya has bubble to save his ass. A gold Reinhardt hits shift like an idiot, without any kind of thought. And he has like a GM Ana probably, like throwing a nade or something to heal him too. Like, he knows that he has high level players that can like support him in his poor decisions. He also knows it's a poor decision and isn't probably expecting a miracle to happen. Whereas a gold probably thinks what he's doing is a good idea. But if you watch a GM do that charge, you don't understand all the context behind it. You just see him do a stupid charge. You go, hey, I can hit shift like an idiot too. So it doesn't necessarily help you if you don't quite understand the full context of what's going on. And so something like a flank like that, a GM might do that flank, but also enemy might also respond to that flank completely differently. It also probably gets like everything changes in that scenario of how effective like that kind of flank could be. It's bizarre, but that like the wall is technically a good idea, but again, you need it to actually split people off. It seemed like you just sort of threw it there, like hoping it would work without necessarily a clear plan of what it was going to do. It would have made more sense to probably, honestly, try and like, I don't know. I think if you're gonna do that, like probably just drop down first and then try and wall off like the Roadhog who was really far forward, and maybe even bait him into like getting this between these whatever you call these. I actually have no idea what I would want to call these, but between these two things and try and wall him off perfectly, and then like more or less 1v1 him. But I actually don't know why your team has not tried to go top at this point. Like they have, for as much as I've like said that you are trying to do this top right thing too much, they are also trying to go mid too much. They have really committed to going mid when they could just easily take the high ground. Interesting. I'm not. I don't know what to comment on that, Blizzard. Well, again, I think the problem is that mostly your team was dead. And that was. It was never going to be effective. I find it strange you threw it straight up in the air, but not necessarily a bad idea. It's an interesting idea. Because, if it goes in the air long enough, like, because yeah, the voice line comes out when you throw it, not when it lands. So if they kind of like didn't know where you threw it, they might come back on point and then get hit by it. Because they would assume it would be on point. Where else would you throw it? But then they wouldn't see it right away, and they'd be like, maybe whatever. I'll go kill the Mei, and then they might get into it. So not really a bad idea, but at the same time, like everyone's dead, and like, I think one of the better ways to do this top flank while your team's going mid would have been to have Blizzard and to throw it out on the enemy team from the high ground during one of your pushes. That probably would have been one of the more effective ways to do this flank. Because at that point, if you're on the high ground, no one's up there, you have a pretty good field of view then of where the enemy is, and you generally want to try and throw Mei ult in a way that anticipates where the enemy's going to want to go. So, for instance, if you were just looking straight at the enemy, let's just say it's flat terrain, everything, it's just like a hallway, right? And they have like a Reinhardt and there's his shields, and it's a tip, it's they're here, we're here, I'm gonna throw Mei ult. You don't want to throw Mei ult where they're at, because they anticipate, like your initial reaction is they're throwing Mei ult at me, I must now back up, right? So what you would actually want to do is throw Mei ult behind them, more or less, like more on their back line, so that when they initially want to back up, they're actually backing up into the Mei ult, because they can't really see where you're throwing it until it lands. Because Snowball is very small, and you just can't really see and like see the trajectory of where it's going. Like you have no idea. You just assume it's going to be on you, and you want to be somewhere else. And that's usually going to involve backing up. Now, if they go forward, well, that's fine because they're going straight into your into your team, and that's probably beneficial for you, for them to walk into you like idiots. So, having that kind of mentality about how you want to use blizzards, the more you can see the terrain and see their positioning, the more you can try and like immediately parse where they're going to want to be and where they're most vulnerable to like throw it. So it's a little complicated to explain how it would work. Like I'd have to go back to a point where they're all standing somewhere and like demonstrate where the most optimal place would be. But generally you'd probably want to throw it on the people who can't get away from it, namely Ana. Ana would be the most obvious one to get. Torb gets a speed boost when he hits E, so Torb's a little iffy. Roadhog's another good one. People who have no mobility, who once they're in it are like basically screwed. And also try and like split them too, because a lot of times they're playing like Ana's in the back, right? And then like Roadhog and their tanks are pretty close to those two pillar things. So if you can throw Blizzard to kind of like make sure that they remain separated and split, And then you could probably like use a wall, and another use of wall is like make sure that you limit line of sight, do all kinds of things. Like you have such a good vantage point to see the field that you can really manipulate it a lot that way with Blizzard, with wall, stuff like that. And then when you see someone, like for instance, if you throw Blizzard on point and they all scatter in different directions, if say you're on the high ground, if one of them goes to that mini that's below the high ground in that little room, let's say like Roadhog split that way, well, you can drop down and basically take a 1v1 of a Roadhog during this team fight. And again, Roadhog, you're pretty good against Roadhog. You'll probably win that. Or at least mess him up pretty bad. And if any of your team sees that you're fighting him, they can probably see him and start shooting at him, And it's going to help you a lot. And that Roadhog's just dead. That's even if your Blizzard didn't really do anything other than split the team. And if anyone gets frozen, well, then obviously just shoot the guy who's frozen. But even if all it did was split them up in different directions, you've created opportunities to like single people out and kill them that way. And you could do that because you have the advantage to see everything going around in that fight. Like awareness is super important. Also, I don't know why you didn't finish him off. Like, why did you not just kill that guy? Like, I see that you like want to get back in the fight, but it's like have to kill him because he's gonna be back in the fight. Like, you have that opportunity to just kill him. Yeah, it needed another shot, but it's like, you gotta take it. So, like, major takeaway from this is you need to participate more in the fight. That's like the biggest thing, is you need to be in the fight. Full stop. Felt like the tanks kept pushing and then canceling the push. Not wrong. It was really hard to tell when you guys were actually pushing. I mean, yes. But at the same time, like, it's because it's like two things going on. Like, one, it's an awareness thing of like you need to be looking at your team and like trying to suss out what they're doing and the state of the fight. Because another thing of like, it's kind of like we were talking about before with the Reinhardt. Like, if Reinhardt's shield is broken, he can't push. Like, he's just going to get shot and die. And people behind him are going to get shot and die. Reinhardt needs shield. So, if you can't see Reinhardt's shield to know how much shield he has, you have no idea whether or not he is confident enough he can keep going forward or will have to back up to recharge shield. Right? Like, you've no idea. And obviously this is Silver, so no one's communicating anything, so you just need to visually see this yourself. And being on a flank, you're never going to know. You're never going to know. So you need to make sure you have this visual awareness. But it's entirely on you. Doesn't this get canceled, doesn't it? Or did I skipped through a bunch. I assumed, oh, it's a skirmish. It's a matter of as well as, and being a more active participant will help with that, but also just looking around more. Like, you just need to, like, occasionally just whip the camera around and see, like, oh, okay, that person's over there, this person's over there. Because what I was getting about how aim is not that important, it's about decision making. And in order to make a good decision, you need to have the information. If you don't know what's going on, how could you possibly make the correct decision? So, and Mei in particular is way more important with that because her entire kit, it's like her wall. Like, everything, if it's, wall is the most important part of her kit, by far. And you need to be able to make good walls to get good value out of her kit. It's not really about her aiming icicles. It does help. If you could bean a tracer in the head from 40 yards, that's great. But what actually, like, even getting to that, actually that's a good example, because Mei versus Tracer is an interesting fight. Because yes, Mei can one-shot Tracer with a headshot. But it's not so much aiming that is the like, oh man, I have to be a good shot to hit Tracer in the head. Because it's like a misnomer to think that aim is like about your arm and movements and just being a quote-unquote good shot. Because what makes someone a good shot isn't what they're doing physically. It's way more mental, in that trying to shoot Tracer, which is something I've actually pretty decent at. I have like 100 hours in May. I'm pretty good at shooting Tracer in the head. I don't do that because I'm good at aiming. I'm actually pretty trash at aiming. I'm garbage at Widowmaker. I do it because I understand, one, the distance that Tracer blinks. It's a set amount of distance. I understand the direction she's going to want to blink into based off the terrain around her. I understand, like, that when she recalls, I think, exactly 3 seconds to where she was before, and I try and keep track of where that would be as best I can. And I also understand the length of time it takes for Mei to fire an icicle from her gun. All of these factors get combined, all the math goes in front of my face, and then I just fire, and hopefully her head's there. And surprisingly often it happens. But it's not really like aim in the sense that I'm like doing something magical. I'm just predicting things. It's all like it's way more mental than it is physical. If that makes sense. Like, it has nothing to do with my sensitivity, not really. I mean, the sensitivity helps. It's a tool that I use. But it's not the main thing. It's more understanding of how Tracer wants to play and what she's going to do more than anything else. Understanding just the physics of her actions. That's what it's all about. And understanding how Mei's gun works. Which, just casual Mei aim tip, if you jump and shoot at the same time, her icicle will fire at the height of your jump, which is really helpful for getting the timing down. Now keep in mind, jumping around like an idiot is a good way to get shot by Widowmaker, so probably avoid doing that against Widowmakers. But if you are trying to like learn Mei's gun a little bit better and get the timing down, that's a good way to do it, is jump and shoot at the same time. Because another reason like sensitivity is like weird with Mei and how you might want it a little bit higher is that when you shoot with Mei, it's a lot more reactive because when you click the gun, it doesn't fire immediately. There's a delay, so you have to kind of like readjust your aim at the last second, which is pretty unusual compared to every other character in the game. It's even more difficult than normal projectile because Pharah doesn't do that. Pharah just predicts once. It's more like you have to predict twice. What does that have to be? You have to predict when you hit the button and then like readjust before the icicle actually comes out, which makes aiming with Mei a little bit more difficult. Though at least her icicle is pretty large and like forgiving, so it's not like impossible. But yeah, jumping can help with the timing. Also can kind of help with hitting headshots because if you're keeping the cursor dead center, and if you jump, then the cursor will actually be basically at head height when you reach the height of your jump anyway. So, on most characters. So, that actually can kind of help with headshots too. But again, keep in mind that jumping puts you in predictable trajectories, which makes it easier for people to headshot you, namely Widowmaker in particular. Some other characters can actually be helpful. Like Hanzo isn't probably going to be easier to hit you in the head unless he's a really good Hanzo. We're in silver though. We don't really care. But jumping can be useful for... What is going on here? I think there's another game, right? Am I crazy? I thought there was a Oasis game. Okay, yeah, there's an Oasis game. I haven't like seen like any of those. I don't know how this goes down. Oh shit, I need to see the comp. Let's look at the comp. So it's really not...
Yeah, I'll take Reaper.
I go to the hero select because I don't think we're gonna get tab. Okay, Rhino Rissa, a lot of shields, Mei, Zen Moira.
Mind if I do?
Alright.
What's their deeps? Okay, I guess we don't get to find out.
Reaper or McCree?
Fighting for.
Reaper.
Reaper.
Yeah, Reaper.
I like it. Reaper, Mei, Reinhardt, Zen. I like it.
My best.
So, here's my immediate concern of what's going to happen in this fight. This is my prediction. You're not going to play aggressive enough, and it's going to be a problem. Because here's the thing, like if you're running with a Reaper, you're running with a Reinhardt. Obviously, this is not perfect comp. You probably want a Lucio for the speed. But the real issue is that like Reaper wants to get really aggressive. Reinhardt wants to get aggressive. Mei is good if she gets aggressive. Like you're going on those flanks. Those are technically aggressive flanks. They were working fairly well. It just wasn't coordinated with the team. You need to be in there with the Reaper and the Reinhardt to get shit done. Ideally, walling people off too to make make it easier to focus.
Yeah.
But hopefully you don't play too passively here, and that's not the reason. That would be my my prediction. If I was gonna make one. Zen is Zen. This is true.
Zen's pretty good.
Zen is pretty good, but I don't think he's necessarily good in this comp. So you've immediately split off from the team. This is why I'm concerned. You do this, okay? Surprise, interesting. But here this goes into the other thing. So awareness. You give a surprise flank. It's an interesting flank. One problem: you've used wall. So most powerful part of your kit. It's been used just to get here. Two, we have no idea what the fuck the enemy's running. So while you got a pretty decent flank on this Reinhardt, you have no idea what the hell's behind you. Namely a Brig that stunned you. I mean, sure, they actually didn't capitalize on this yet, as well as they should have. You might actually survive this, but you shouldn't have. You honestly should not have. That was actually a good, like, pretty good use of wall to like lift yourself up. But unfortunately, your team's dead. How did your team die? Oh wait, you hit tab there.
Tracer's flanking. Tracer down.
Well, alrighty.
You have a Diva? Diva Reinhardt. Oh, Pharah. So, okay. I assume Pharah killed a bunch of people, Tracer flanked and killed a bunch of people. I think that Reinhardt charged, which might have actually gotten value too. Yeah. Oh man. See, this is where Zen's gonna be a real problem. That Tracer is probably gonna kill him every time.
Reinhardt was like had no shield up for like forever, and I don't know how.
See now, okay. This was getting. Remember how like a long time ago, like years ago, I mentioned that Diva was a character that could do a lot of things. May can do a lot of things. A lot of characters can actually do a lot of things. Yeah, you were on the objective. But here's the thing. Should you be on the objective? Because now there's another element now that we know the enemy team. So like when we walk out of spawn, my immediate reaction is stay off Reaper, stay off Reinhardt, push in together, mess them up. Makes a lot of sense. You went on a flank. It was a weird flank. I don't recommend it, again, because you had to use wall and you wasted it basically to get where you were going, and it didn't get value. Could have worked maybe, but I think it was just way too dangerous to put your back to the enemy team. You should have been punished for it and probably immediately killed if they had any kind of like McCree, Hanzo, Widow, like any kind of like shoot you once and you're dead kind of characters. Like you were kind of just a free kill. Maybe you could ice block, but still you're in the middle of the team with an ice block and no wall. Like you're toast unless the team saves you, unless your team saves you from your actions. But what I'm gonna get out now is like the game has changed at this point because now we know what the enemy is running. And we know they're running a Tracer. We just had this conversation about Tracer. Like, Zen is going to die a lot. He should not be Zen, probably, especially at this elo. He's silver. I doubt he's going to win against Tracer. You need to save him. You need to keep Tracer away. You need to keep Diva away. Diva's another flanky tank. Like, you need to make Diva's life miserable because you can freeze her and she can't do anything about it. Diva's really weak against Mei. So Tracer can be shoot away. If you headshot her, she's just dead. This is a matter of getting confident and mostly just a bad Tracer. Like, you need to be able to make those shots, but at the same time, like, it's not always going to happen. But ideally, if you could put a Tracer on notice, like that you're going to shoot her in the head if she gets close, she's not gonna get a lot of value. That's kind of the point, is like diminishing the value of the Tracer. Because right now in this state of the game, Tracer's gonna keep shooting your Zen and probably win every time and get a lot of value. And if you don't save him, I don't know who will. Maybe Moira will, but then who's gonna heal your team, right? Like Moira has healing to do. Also, apparently you have a Hanzo now, which also has changed the game because at this point you don't have a Reaper, so there's no point in being super aggressive with Reaper because that plan's out the window. So at this point, you need to now be concerned about your backline. You are probably the best person to deal with that. But once again, you've abandoned your team. And the team is basically losing the fight while you're not in it.
I don't know how I'm dying to Reinhardt's ass.
Yeah, so your team lost that fight without you. Fair is also another kind of concern, but not one you can deal with as Mei. You can kind of take some shots at her, but you're not very good against her. Fair is generally a counter to Mei. But they don't have like a healer for Pharaoh, so like, it's not quite super useful. But like you can't be on these. You gotta be with the team. May's a team player. She's not a flanker. Like she can flank. This is true. She can flank and be effective. The Hanamura. See, this is the trap. See, you did those flanks on Hanamura, and you got kills from it. You got the Ana like every time. You seemed like you were doing a job, but it's not what you need to do.
One, right? One.
No, you do. In fact, to go back to the point of what I've been making of like aim's not that important. You were shooting the Ana. You were getting headshots and killing her. Aim had nothing to do with it. You were hitting the shots, but those weren't the shots you're supposed to be shooting in the first place.
So what are you doing, Ryan?
And then there's like alt usage too. Like you're frequently throwing Blizzard out when you've lost the
No,
fight.
I've already given up.
This is a very common mistake. Very, 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 very common mistake. You don't want to throw your ults away. You want to save them.
Guard control with one.
Actually, correction. I don't want to. Actually, that's a different notion I don't want to put in your head either, because what you want to do
Ryan.
is you want to have ult,
Why?
and you want to use it at the next best opportunity. That being
The wind is.
the start of the next fight. That's when you use your ultimate. So you have Blizzard, you walk into the fight, you pretty much immediately throw Blizzard at the start of the fight. Now there can be exceptions. They have a D.Va. You need to be worried about D.Va eating the Blizzard. So that might change when you throw it. You know, there are concerns. Like, okay, Zarya, if they had a Zarya is very good against Mei. She's probably one of the best counters to Mei, honestly, is Zarya, because of the bubbles. Keeps people from being frozen. So if Zarya has both her bubbles and you throw Blizzard, and at the start of the fight Zarya should have both her bubbles, well then she's going to bubble herself and bubble someone else, and the odds of your Blizzard getting value is a lot less. So there are times where you want to wait for certain opportunities, but as a general rule about ultimates, you want to use them at the start of the next fight, pretty much immediately in that next fight. The other issue is you don't want to stack ultimates that are necessary. You don't want to use like 3 ultimates to start a fight, because you have 3 ultimates. You use exactly what you need to use to win the fight. No more, no less. Ideally. But you'd never throw it away at like the end of a fight that you've basically lost to try and save it, because the odds of it actually succeeding are very low, because ults typically need follow-up. You can't kill 6 people with your ultimate. It's impossible for Blizzard to kill 6 people. It's never going to happen. You cannot fire enough shots on enough heads fast enough for the entirety of Blizzard. You at most can kill 2 people, I think, in a Blizzard. I think that's literally like the most you could do. You might be able to get a 3rd at the tail end of it, like when they're thawing out. You can get like a 3rd. There's only so much you could theoretically possibly do, and that's still like best case scenario, 200 HP heroes that can't get out of Blizzard, etc., etc. So there's no real statistical way you can win that and like save it by yourself. Not gonna happen. But if you save it for the start of the next fight, you've opened up with a powerful combo, or not combo, but a powerful ability that has put it in your favor. Like the fight is now winnable. Like it's inherently like you have effectively won it because you've thrown an ultimate that probably has gotten some value, right? Like you throw someone, you got at least 1 pick from it. It did something, and it now puts the ball in the enemy's court to try and like do something to counter it. Either they use a support ultimate to try and save people, they just like outplay it, like they all split up and they don't get frozen. They use a bunch of cooldowns on a throws a nade, use bubbles, etc., etc. But that still puts them on the back foot. And this is why usually you need an ultimate to counter another ultimate that, you know, they need to use another powerful ability. That's going to be way more effective use. This one is like, it's not horrible, mostly because okay, this is actually a pretty good example of the other time you might want to use an ultimate, of when the fight could go either way, because you had like someone alive, they obviously are missing people, maybe, but it's still a pretty big gamble. Like they had like 3 alive, yeah, you get all 3 of them. As I just said, you could probably kill 3 in a Blizzard, but what are the odds it succeeds? What are the odds it succeeds? It's not very high. You gotta play the odds, especially when we're talking about consistency. That's another thing especially for DPS to learn, is there's nothing certain. Like I was talking about, like fighting Roadhog and how you should probably win against Roadhog. It's not. There's like a percentage chance. You know, if he gets the hook, he can kill you. But is he gonna get the hook? What are the odds he gets the hook? What are the odds you outplay him? You have ice block. What are the odds he gets a perfect combo? Nothing is 100% in any direction, but it should probably favor you though in that encounter. And the better you are, the more it favors you. And the worse he is, the more it favors you. And since we're talking about like climbing, ideally you are better than the elo that you're at, right? Like if you want to be gold, you have to be gold. Or you use plat, you have to be plat. And you're fighting against silvers right now, or whatever, silvers, golds. Like, if you're better, it will show up when you take these matchups. But you have to understand the matchups and the odds. You have to know that, like, for instance, if you're fighting... Like, okay, actually, McCree is a good example. They are changing McCree, and that does actually... I think part of the reason why they're buffing McCree is actually... Well, actually, wait, no. The patch came live today, and a lot of the buffs didn't go through. So we'll see what happens. So we'll just talk about regular McCree. At point-blank range, McCree will win, because if he flashbangs you, he can fan the hammer and you're dead. You could duke the flashbang with an ice block. And if that happens, you freeze him and kill him, probably before he kills you. At range, it's basically a skill matchup that you may or may not want to take. But you can like ice block at range and then probably be fine. You can like kind of nope out of the fight with ice wall. You have options at range that McCree doesn't. So you could take the fight. If it goes well, you win. If it starts going poorly, you just nope out of it with ice wall or ice block, or both. Understand that matchup. But at point blank range, you probably don't have the option to run. He'll just flashbang and kill you. You don't want to try and freeze McCree, unless you know he doesn't have flashbang. There's a lot of factors going on, but this is all like the odds change. You see, if you know he doesn't have flashbang, the odds of you winning at point blank range are extremely high. If he does, they're a lot dicier. Depends if you can like avoid the flashbang with ice block or something. You're probably better off going at range. And then it's a matter of skill. But then it's a matter of you can just nope out. So it's actually kind of safe to play at range. Just don't get surprised and like immediately 3-tapped. You know your odds. Hanzo can one-shot you at any range. Understand that. He can easily just shoot you in the head and you're dead. It's a more dangerous fight. Doesn't really matter if it's close range or far away. It's probably easier closer because you just freeze him and shoot him. And he needs to like flick headshot you. And that's going to be really hard at point blank range, especially at this elo. So it's safer to get him at close range. At far away range, you could outshoot him, but he might just pop you in the head and kill you. Like, it's all of these variables, and it's different for every DPS matchup. And you have to kind of understand those odds and play to those odds. The same thing of ultimates. Understand that if you throw this ultimate, the odds of it working is at 90% or 10%. Don't throw it at 10. Throw it at 90. Understand that even if it doesn't get perfect value, like understand like how, like what could get in the way of it, Zarya bubbles, Diva eats it, stuff like that, and try to play around that. But then also like understand that there's more than one way to get value, just in terms of like if you split them up, then like take that opportunity. You need to even purposely try and split them up with the ultimate. There's a lot of advanced things. Like, you could talk for days. This is the problem with this. The summation is especially just play with the team more. Don't flank Mei. Just because it can work doesn't mean it will work. I'm sure there are games that you win where flank Mei was a terror and you hard carried out doing it. I'm sure that exists. I have no doubt that flank Mei has done very well for you in the games that you've won. It does not do well for you in the games that you lose, because that is not how Mei really is meant to be played. There are times where flanking you, like even at high low, you'll flank. But it's like controlled instances, it's very specific reasons, and it's usually on very short flanks. That's another thing. Like, for instance, just off the top of my head, like, let's say we're talking King's Row attack. The hotel on the left, right? You go through that little choke, you go on the left, there's the hotel. That's a really short flank to get, like, behind the enemy. It's really short. It's like 2 feet, Mei could do that flank. Easy. Doesn't mean you should, but it's a quick flank that you could do while your team is fighting that is not a big problem, and you can easily do that and catch out someone who is unaware. But that's because it's really short. The Hanamura flank you were doing is a very, very long flank that the team fight was basically over by the time you actually got to the point where you need to do something. So, generally speaking, play with the team more and be a more active participant, because it's kind of funny when, like, in this fight, everyone's like blaming Reinhardt and shit, and it's like, how much of that fight were you really in on first point, or yeah, on the circle one, whatever it's called, the one with the hole in the middle. Like, a lot of times you come up from the hole, the fight's kind of like has already gone south without you. Like, I don't think it was Reinhardt's fault, because you could have greatly helped Reinhardt as a Mei. Like, you're great at helping him fight other Reinhardts. Like, Mei's best abilities in general, like if we're talking, like, know what your character does best and play to the strengths. So Mei's greatest strength is mostly making tanks' lives a living hell. Like, she is anti-tank through and through. Only Zarya really, like, Zarya and, like, Orisa are probably the two tanks that can kind of, like, fuck with Mei's abilities because of Fortify and Bubbles. But she makes Reinhardt's miserable, D.Va's miserable. Sigma's a little not as bad as some of the other ones, but still, like, you can't absorb, like, you can freeze absorb, like, Sigma's not gonna be great at it. Like, Roadhog's bad. Like, most of the tanks get demolished by Mei. And if you're on a flank, what are you doing against the enemy tanks? Nothing. But that's your best strength, is dealing with tanks and helping your tanks, because Mei is almost a tank in and of herself. I petitioned at one point for Blizzard to, like, make Mei a tank, because I think she'd probably be better at it than what she currently role is. Probably never gonna happen, but she's so good in that role to be with the tank line. Learn to play Mei that way, and don't have, like, poor confidence in your abilities, because I think this is another thing, like the aim debate. It's always like a lack of confidence in your ability to shoot things. This is not the problem. Not right now. I mean, in the future, it might be. Like, if we get, like, Plat, maybe you're going to get out shot by other Plats. Maybe. But we're not there yet. I wouldn't worry about it. It's not the reason that's keeping you from Plat. It's not the aim. It might keep you from Master. It might keep you from Diamond, even. But it's not keeping you in Silver. Not by any means. And I went way too long. But hopefully you learned something from it.